Good morning. So ladies and gentlemen and young folk, welcome. My name is Diane Grant and I am a civil celebrant from Nagambie, and I am here to guide you through the celebration of Iris Staples' life. She was a unique character. On behalf of the family of Iris, I thank you for coming to this ceremony today. We gather here today to mourn the loss of Iris, each with our own feelings of grief, and we gather today to hold up her memory and to say goodbye. I would like to offer my sincere sympathy to her beloved husband Frank, her son Fred Stones, and wife Alison, and their family. And then we remember Iris's grandchildren, Nathan and wife Mandy, Iris's great-grandchildren, Zach, Mason, Chloe, Oliver and Lucy, and great-great-grandchildren, Mason and Emma's Ruby and Carter, grandchildren Shani and partner Tanya, Darren and his children Lily and Logan, and Iris's youngest granddaughter Kayleen. And on Frank's side, there is Gary, who she raised as a son, and his wife Vi, and Gary's children Kelly, with Tiana and Joshua, and Michael and wife Natasha, and their daughter Sienna, and David and Robert's children, Melanie, Carissa, Reese, and their families. Now I'm going to ask Nathan to do a prayer for us. So if Nathan could please come up and do our prayer.
Father in heaven, we are grateful to have this opportunity to spend this last time with Iris on this earth, and we pray at this time to bless Frank and Fred and family and friends with the warm feelings and memories that they have of Iris, that these feelings and fond memories will help them to get them through this grieving period at this time. We pray to bless those that are speaking, that they may be filled with love and happiness and great joy as they speak of those things which we know Iris to be. We pray for all those that can't be with us, that they may also feel of this joint love and warmth in this room. And we pray for these things now in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Now there are other family members, particularly her sister June Rose and family, who she adored, and her grandson Darren, who unfortunately can't be with us today as they are based in the UK. But today is also a day of Thanksgiving, our chance to say thank you for Iris being a part of our lives. The memory of today, alongside family and friends, will be a consolation and comfort to her family and friends later on, during those moments of grief and emptiness. For quite a few years, Iris has been suffering ill health, especially over the past 6 months. Her life came to a close on Monday, the 5th of July at Nagambie Healthcare. Now, Iris was a part of many people's lives in different ways for 90 years, as a wife, a mother and mother-in-law, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a sister-in-law, an auntie, a cousin, a mate or friend, a workmate, a neighbour, a member of a local group or organisation, or some other connection. And today you have come here to pay your respects to her memory and offer comfort to her family and those who shared and cared for her. You are here to share some memories you made with her. We think also of all the other people who have over the years been important to her in her life and for whom she was important. The people she grew up with, the people she shared a life with, or who she worked with, or those she kept company with and enjoyed being with, and those who supported her in many ways. So let us also think of those who cannot be here today because of distance or illness, who may have known and cared for her, especially her family in England. And I believe one thing for sure, and that is that Iris would not want you to remember her with sadness, but rather with fondness, definitely with her cheeky smile and her happy laugh, and with a thought to all the good and happy moments of her life. Along with our sadness at Iris's passing, we also find something to be glad about at this time. We are glad she did not suffer long, and that she is now at peace. We are glad for the joys that she had, and for the fullness of her life. And we are glad for having known her, and for the things she gave. And as we talk about her today, and in the days and years to come, we will reminisce and laugh and cry. Eventually, the times we grieve will grow further apart and shorter in duration, while our fears that we might forget her will dissipate. Our memories of her will grow stronger, and is it not true that our lives from one moment to the next become simply memories? Those we love deeply and those who grieve deeply. Those who love deeply will grieve deeply. No philosophy or religion ever taught can prevent this wholly natural reaction of the human heart. But when love is unconditional, acceptance and letting go at those we love is equally a part of our human condition. Nothing can now detract from the joy and beauty that you shared with Iris. Nothing can possibly affect the happiness and depth of experience she herself knew. What has been forever. The past with all its meaning is sacred and secure. Your love for her and her love for you, her family and friends, cannot now be altered by time or circumstance. You will remember her as a living, vital presence. I'll now hand over to Iris's son Fred, who will deliver the eulogy, who will be followed by Iris's granddaughter Shani, providing a family tribute, and that will shortly be followed by a visual snapshot of Iris's life through photos. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you for coming. As you know, Mum was quite unique, and for those of you that haven't received one, there are little bookmarks out the front. And some of you may think that the little poem on the front's a bit irreverent. Not at all, that was Mum. Not a black tie, that was Mum. Colourful. Now, Mum was born in Sheffield in Yorkshire in England on 6th of January 1931. She was born to my grandparents, Edmund and Irene Longston, and believe it or not, she was born in a gypsy wagon. Now, she's the only one in her family that was born in a gypsy wagon, and to this day, nobody knows why she was born in a gypsy wagon. But, needless to say, Mum was different. She was the third child and had two brothers and two sisters. The first was Phyllis, who died when she was a baby, then Edmund, Mom, Ronald, who died from diphtheria when he was 9, and finally, along came Auntie June Rose. Mom told me about some of the things of her past when she was growing up. And one of the things she told me about was the bombings, because she obviously lived during the war. And one particular bombing that took place over Sheffield, where she was living obviously, they had to run into the shelter in the backyard that Grandad had built. And one of the bombs unfortunately hit the house. This is not where I'm supposed to do this. Now, Grandad was at work, and he ran home to find them. And the amazing thing was that he was managed to run between all the craters that were along the whole street without falling in one. And that was Mom's comment. He managed to make it without falling in. And they were all safe in the shelter that he'd made. Now, Mom didn't like school very much, but she attended primary and secondary school. And she attended there in Sheffield until she was about 14. She started to work as a sales girl, but my nana, and that's what I used to call my grandmother, she said, "I don't like this man. I don't think it's the right job for you. You're not going tomorrow." And so she didn't. Needless to say, Mum found another job. She never found it hard to get a job. And for as long as I can remember, she's always had a job, whether it be working hard and earning money or whether it be in the community. She's always had a job. At the age of 17, she went to a dance at the local hall where Grandad escorted her there. Now, she happened to be sitting alone, quite nonchalant, shall we say, and this young sailor approached her and asked her if she'd like to dance. Now, that sailor was my father, and my gramps, or their gramps I should say, and my stepfather is Frank, and we'd all love him very much. But my dad, James Stones, was this young sailor, as I said, and he went by the name of Jim. Everybody knew him as Jim. And they both loved to dance, and from that moment on, they seemed to go to dancing every weekend, until eventually, after 12 months of courtship, they married. And they married in a St. Cecilia's Church in Sheffield in 1949. And they were then blessed in 1950 with a very handsome, intelligent child. And that was in 1950. Yeah, you can work out my age. It's not a problem. In 1965, Dad decided that it would be a good idea to become 10-pound Poms. And so we emigrated to Australia. The company Dad worked for had managed to secure a job for him in Melbourne. And so Mom's Australian journey began. We stayed a few months in the migrant hostels at Maribyrnong and Holmes Glen. And it was here that Mom began the volunteer path that became a part of her life. She was a trailblazer. She was a trailblazer in many ways, but one particular one was how she formed the first ever residents volunteer committee that spoke upon the poor conditions in many of the hostels. One of the conditions that I can remember is we were living in Nissen huts, and when we arrived, the Nissen huts, as most of you probably are aware, are just steel. We didn't have any lining on the inside, so if you sat in summer on your seat, you leant back, it was rather warm. She managed to get them lined. We had a toilet block that we all used, and the showers were down the bottom and the toilets were up the top. And if the little boys missed the top hose they were going, you stood in it down the bottom when you were showering. She managed to get concrete blocks made in the showers so it ran past. Little things like that. And that was all due to the work that she did, along with the committee that she organised. Now, Mum and Dad separated and eventually divorced, and so it was just the two of us again. Until, in 1968, Mum met Frank. Now, Frank was managing a confectionery company. For the life of me, Frank, I can't remember what it was called. Yes, that bit I'm coming to. What was the name of the company? No, it was before that. APD, thank you. It was APD. I couldn't remember what it was. And so it was at APD where she met Frank, and as Frank just said, she did not like him one little bit. And she went out of her way to make his life hell. One of the things that she's told me, and I think Frank's told me too, is that he put her in charge of inspection, making sure that quality control was correct. And they were making potato chips. And so she'd stand there watching these potato chips, and she'd be standing there looking. Stop the line! And there'd be one minute little mark on this potato chip. Go fix that, she'd said to Frank. And so he'd have to go and fix whatever it was, then come back, they start the line again. And so that was just one of the ways that she tried to make life absolute hell for Frank. That eventually changed, and they started to go out together. Now, back in those days, companies frowned on fraternisation within the working environment. And so what Mum decided to do was pursue the relationship with Frank, so she quit the job. Now, I don't ever remember Mum not working. She was fiercely independent, both financially and emotionally, and hence she made the decision to leave. Now, several years later, Mum and Frank relocated to Sydney for Frank's work, where she got a job as a cook at the Commonwealth Government building in Sydney. And she had the pleasure, which a lot of people are not aware of cooking and serving for the current Prime Minister, of which she was very proud. Now, Mum and Frank were together for 17 years, and then they decided that they were going to get married. And that was on New Year's Eve, 1983. And that was at their home, which they purchased in Wantirna South. Now, Frank had two sons from his previous marriage, Gary, which a lot of you know, and also David. And Mum welcomed them as her own family, and later their partners and their children. In 1984, Mum and Frank started to visit the Nagambie Caravan Park. This was just on weekends, just for something to do, to get away from the big smoke. But that led to permanency and a caretaking job in the caravan park. It was here where they met Marie and Kel Boyle and their family, who became part of our family. Mum and Marie became exceptionally good friends. Mum joined many local community groups and charities, volunteering her time and talents. She was a beautiful needlecraft worker. Her knitting, crocheting, quilting and embroidery, the skills she had there were put to good use. Many groups, hospitals, individuals and babies benefited from her wonderful craft items. Her organisational skills and also the money-raising efforts over the many years she worked as a volunteer. Now, Mum was an avid member of the Nagambie Community House, and she was a charter member of the Lions Club in Nagambie. She also volunteered as a trolley lady at the Nagambie Hospital, which she just loved, pushing that trolley around and speaking to all the patients that were there. She was well respected and loved by her fellow Lions, and in fact that applied to anyone that met her. She helped to raise thousands of dollars through her most precious commodities, her time and organisational skills, benefiting many local groups, overseas Lions projects, and most importantly, the individuals in her local community. She always looked to try and support local. She loved being involved in the community, giving back to it, as well as giving to the charities. Mum did not expect to be rewarded or acclaimed for her work, but she did receive the Strathbogie Shire Council's Australia Day Award Citizen of the Year. That was on the 26th of January 2005, and this was for her contribution to her community. Now, Mum played a big role in local market stalls and community events, whether it was setting up, selling at them, or organising the events. She was always involved. She just couldn't help herself. She was always helping others. Mum was consistently in the local paper for her philanthropic, I knew I was going to get that wrong and I got that right every time I tried this, for her philanthropic activities, and was known as the go-to lady, especially if you needed help, a chat, or just a laugh over a cuppa. She was extremely creative in all ways. She loved craft work. She loved dancing and music. She even tried boot scooting at one stage. And she loved music so much that every morning, and Frank can verify this, she'd get up and the first thing she would do would turn on the radio. Then she'd start looking at making breakfast. She loved to travel and enjoyed the new experiences that brought. Now, Mum and Frank were fortunate enough to visit many parts of Europe, Asia, and North America, and went around Australia several times to various places. Now, Mum particularly loved going back to England to visit her sister, my Auntie June Rose. I'm not going to do it, June Rose. Damn it, I am. Sorry, people. Mum and Auntie June Rose were very, very close. I know she's suffering at this time, and I feel for her. Now, let's get back to this. Get yourself together, Fred. Whew. Now, distance could not keep them apart, and she believed in close family ties and invested time to keep those relationships strong. Now, Mum not only loved people, she also loved animals, and she adopted several rescue dogs and orphaned cats over the years. It wasn't uncommon for Mum to be hand-feeding wild birds, and she loved to sit on the patio, and she would sit there for hours watching the birds whilst Frank potted in the garden. And Mum's life was not measured in wealth accumulation, but in experiences, memories, friendships, connections, charity, respect, and above all, family love, all of which she had in abundance. Of all the many talents that Mum had and the achievements she'd made throughout her life, the best of all for me has just been my mother. Taught me what.
Little Lady, Love, Lovey, Darling, Iris, Wireless were just a few names that you would know her by, but to me she was Nan. She was always welcoming, she could and would talk to anybody with no judgment, and was definitely a friend to a stranger by the end of any conversation. Today is bittersweet. I cannot think of a world without my Nan in it. But I'm so relieved that Nan is no longer in pain and suffering. And I'm so grateful to have known and loved her for the amazing woman she was and continues to be through us all. I'm lucky enough and privileged to carry her bloodline, although to Nan this wasn't always important. To Nan, it's the person you are and how you share that with others that mattered the most. You heard Dad say that Nan was fiercely independent. That was an understatement to all of us that know her. She taught all of us girls to be financially and emotionally independent, to not rely on anyone to support us, as your life is yours and what you make it, and to never settle. She taught us to be humble in victory, because one day you'll be second, she'd say. Don't get too ahead of yourself. She taught us that every moment matters and that words are more important than you think, and a good card will always say it all. And most importantly, she told us to enjoy what we have today. We are the good, she would say to me. The last time we spent together in her home was 2 days before she went back into hospital. She said, Gramps isn't here, let's be naughty. She wanted spaghetti bolognese, as Gramps doesn't eat pasta, and she wanted to drink champagne. So 4 hours later, after making bolognese, we sat down to eat and drink champagne out of her finest crystal glasses, which were Gramps' mum's. She didn't believe in putting good things away for a special occasion. We are the good. Every occasion is special. Enjoy today, she would say. For this, I will always be grateful. She taught the men in our family to be sensitive and loving, and to always treat women with respect and honour and as an equal at all times. My Nan was wild and crazy. She was funny and so much fun to be around. She made life fun. When we were little, she'd run us all a bubble bath, and there'd be more bubbles than water, leaving her bathroom looking like a science experiment. But she loved it. She encouraged laughter, curiosity, and created magical moments that mattered for all of us grandchildren. When we get out of the bath, she'd dry us all off and then get out her little purple powder puff, and we get dusted from head to toe with one final dust, one on a bot, she'd say as she powdered your bum. Growing up, I always remember Nan being immaculate. Her hair was always done, her nails were always super long, and always painted. Most of you may not know, but Nan loved numbers. She hated even numbers and loved odd numbers and would count everything. She'd paint our nails when we were little, and she'd count all 9 fingers, and then the last one she'd start at the beginning again because it was an even number. So the 10th nail always had an extra coat, 1, 2, 3, so she'd finish on the number 3. It's because of her to this day that I have a different colour nail. It's the 10th nail. Always. Her little quirks and superstitions have been ingrained in all of us. She used to say, if you put a piece of clothing on the wrong way or inside out, it needs to stay that way all day. Or you need to change into something else. You can't turn it inside out and put it back on. When she was in Shepparton Hospital early this year, the nurse put her gown on inside out and realised and went to correct it. I leapt off my seat in horror, saying, I'm sorry, you need to go get another gown, it's bad luck. My love of boob tubes, open-toed high heel shoes, and all things shiny come from her. I remember her having a glow mesh key ring that held her car keys in it. And when she'd drive her fancy 2-door green Honda Civic back in the day, the little glow mesh key ring would sway and catch the light, and there'd be little rainbow sparkles all in the car, and she'd say, it's the sun's magic. I remember being little and staying at Nan's house one night, and I didn't have my pyjamas because Nan's house was always heaps more fun than home. And she would put me in one of her boob tubes as a nightie and put a headband around my chest to hold it up and said, don't matter. I have a beautiful photo of my Nan on a merry-go-round with her when I was little at one of the John Sands picnics, which happened every year when she worked there, and we would all go along and celebrate together as a family. In this photo, she has high heel shoes on, open-toed, looking extremely glamorous in her very large sunglasses and her colourful outfit. She loved colour. She'd be horrified I'm in black today, but I couldn't do it. She was always there and always involved in everything we were doing as kids and always looking very fancy and flash. Nan loved paper and would sometimes feel paper and say, yuck, it's rubbish, meaning it was poor grade paper. She worked at Valentine's, as I said, for years, and at one point worked on the gold leaf embossing machine, and when she talked about it, she would light up. She loved that job. And she loved cards. A good card does say it all, she'd say. She loved stationery and writing. For those that have been to her house, you would see that she always had a to-do list going. There was little notes and little lists everywhere, little pieces of paper and little pieces of cardboard. There was a notepad or a book or a calendar for every occasion, every category. And every Christmas we'd all get some sort of stationery as kids, whether it was a diary, scratch and sniff stickers, smelly texters, colourful pens. She encouraged us all to write and to be creative rather than watch TV. And you guessed it, I love stationery and have a book and a pen for every occasion. Nan had beautiful handwriting. She always wrote in cursive and it always had more loops than a shower curtain. As much as she loved paper, she loved technology and learning new things. Texting with Nan was always funny, as I'd have to read the text out loud in a Pommy accent sometimes to understand what she was trying to say, as she would spell like she spoke. I taught her how to send gifts one day and she quickly learnt a whole new language, sending gifts, sending moving pictures, and that was even funnier, trying to work out what she was trying to say and what she was trying to tell me in the moving picture. Nan had many gifts. Most of you have seen or experienced these, but some not so. Some of her gifts she kept hidden for a long time. Nan had the gift of precognition and clairsentience, meaning she had visions. She could read tea leaves and was intuitively always knew the right thing to say at the right time, even if it was just bugger 'em. When I'd ring, she'd never say hello. Is that you? This is me. No, this is me. Is that you? This is me. Is that you? This would continue on backwards and forwards until I'd get sick of the game and say, it's rude not to say hello, you know. Every conversation started with a laugh with my Nan and always ended with a laugh. Laughter really was her medicine. Her whole body would scrunch up when she'd laugh, and you could tell what she was really thinking by the type of laugh that came out of her mouth. She had a wicked sense of humour. She would randomly say to me, quite often actually, people are like flowers, you know, Sian, but I don't know if I'd pick you though. Or when Tanya and I would visit, the first thing to come out of her mouth would be to Tanya, hello love, why did you bring her? She was sharp, witty, definitely one of a kind, and always made you feel special in her own unique way. I can't ever recall Nan yelling at me, smacking at me, or ever being angry. In fact, as a kid, I'd regularly dob on my dad to her because Nan fixed everything. Nan loved knickknacks, and growing up, I remember there being a small wooden house hanging on the side of the door, and it had porcelain dogs in it, and all of the dogs had one of our names on it. And in that little box, there was a doghouse up the top. And if you were in the doghouse, if your dog was in that doghouse, you knew you were in trouble. As kids, we'd walk in and we'd check the doghouse first thing to see who was in it and hope it wasn't us. The fear of that doghouse was definitely greater than her bark. She loved collectibles, as most of you would know if you've been to her home. When each of us grandkids were born, she would start a new collection for each grandchild, whilst continuing to add to all the other collections. There was everything from bells, thimbles, spoons, you name it. There was a collection for each of us. I had the cruet sets and was fortunate enough to be given these two before she passed. The charm bracelet I wear today was also a gift from Nan and for Gramps. Each charm specially chosen over decades for each one of us girls in the family. Kayleen, Kelly and myself all have one. I will always treasure mine, as I know Kayleen and Kelly will always treasure theirs. I could go on for years about how amazing my beautiful, funny, kind my Nan was. The world would not be the same without her in it. She spent her whole life shining a spotlight on everyone else. And today is her time in the spotlight. I can only hope that we've been able to shine the brightest light on her today. Nan was not traditional, just like everything today is not traditional. Her coffin was even a one-off. We had it resprayed white, 2 extra coats of lacquer to make it shiny, silver replaced with gold. Nothing but the best for my Nan. She brought sparkle to life and left magic wherever she went. Even in death, Nan is raising money for her favourite charity, the Royal Flying Doctors. And so far, as of an hour ago, she has already raised over $2,100. I will miss being told to bugger off or sod off. I will miss laughing so hard with her that I almost wet myself, and I haven't had children. I will miss being bossed around by her. I will miss our banter. But most of all, I will miss my friend. If flowers really are like people, I definitely pick my Nan first, every time. Now I'd like you all to sit back and enjoy the journey of the amazing life and personality of our beloved Nan through a snapshot of photos that you'll see today.
Can you top that? All the people here today have woven strands in one way or another in the tapestry of Iris's life. We give thanks for her life and the part she played in ours. May you be thankful and grateful for Iris Staples' life, remembering the intangible impact of her life on yours. The family would like to thank all those special people who cared for her in the medical sector, particularly over the last 6 to 9 months. Now may you bring to mind her smile, her courage in the face of adversity, and in the way she lived her life. Remember the significant moments, fun times, and laughter you had with her. Iris will be sadly missed by those whose lives she touched and those who loved her. Most importantly, she will be missed for who she was and the courage she showed to live life and the way she chose to live it. It is important that through this sadness that we remember her zest for the adventures of life, her sense of humour, her warmth and the kindness that radiated from her. Iris Staples, we give thanks for your life and for your 90 years of contribution to this world. Thank you for the good times and the bad. For as you know, lessons can be learned from good as well as bad. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your love and friendship. Thank you for your laughter. But thank you most of all, Iris, for being you. You leave this world a richer place than you found it. Your life we honour, your departure we accept, and your memory we cherish in grief at your death, but in gratitude for your life and for the privilege of sharing it with you. Rest now at the end of your days. Your work is done. Rest in the hearts and the minds of all you loved. Now, as we approach the end of our service here today, on behalf of the family, I would like to invite you to share some refreshments and the chance to share some memories of Iris with her family and friends at the Nagambie Rowing Club, located in High Street, Nagambie, from 1 o'clock onwards. We're now coming to our farewell and committal part for Iris. So tenderly, reverently, we commit the body of Iris to be cremated and to be returned to Mother Earth, from which all life comes and to which all life in the end returns. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Now the family have requested that as Iris was the matriarch of the family, she will leave the chapel first, escorted by her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and followed by the remaining family, row by row afterwards of you. Now may I ask you all to please stand as we now prepare for our final farewell to Iris. And the music that will be played will be Nana Muscuri singing Amazing Grace. Thank you all for coming again today.
Ah that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear. In grace my fears the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.